Hey, welcome to the stream, everyone. We've got a fun one here. This will be the Perfect Circle format tournament that we've been holding on the YGO from Zero Discord server. It'll be the finals of that, so I'm excited to do that here. So the finals are between Barcode and Karina, two very good retro duelists, and it's going to be an interesting matchup. It's not a Perfect Circle mirror, it's Perfect Circle Monarch versus Macro Monarch. So yeah, it'll be pretty fun. Yep, so I'm just getting things sort of away on Discord here. But yeah, it should be a lot of fun here. And let's see, is the game started already? Are they in? I've been having internet connection issues recently, so hopefully that doesn't manifest in the stream. Hopefully we have a good one here. But if the stream ever does cut out some point, it will probably be back. It's just been having some issues lately. But yep. So let's see if they're going to be starting soon. Yep, Karina is hosting for Barcode here, and we'll be diving in. Now, if you've never seen Perfect Circle format, I've got a bunch of videos on my channel for it, and I'll have a couple more coming out this week and the next week. I've been a bit busy lately IRL, so I haven't really been able to post videos about it recently, but there will be one going up tonight after the stream. I don't want to post it before the stream because then people will be watching that and then not watching the stream and etc. So I figured it'd be best to post it after. But it should be pretty fun, and then I'll have more Perfect Circle content coming on the way. But apologies for the less frequent releases than I've had in the past. But that should wrap up relatively soon, so it'll be pretty fun. But let's get to what matters, the game itself. And we got Barcode going first here against Karina. Both players, good luck. You know, they made it this far, so it's very impressive. And it's something to be commended for there. But who will be the one to take home the ultimate title and lay their stamp on the history of this format? We'll have to wait and see. Now, Barcode is on Perfect Circle Monarch, and Karina is on Macro Monarch. If you don't know what these decks do, don't worry. They should manifest their game plans in the game itself. Basically, Perfect Circle Monarch, though, the general game plan is using things like Rise of Fiend Twin Blast, etc., to shuffle back, or not shuffle back, but stack the top of your opponent's deck to prevent them from actually drawing anything to out your board, and also use the hero engine as well. Use things like Elemental Hero Strauss to Disc Commander to then pitch off D-Draw to do stuff with that, to both get more bodies on field to tribute, and also just draw a bunch of cards and search a bunch. Whereas Macro Monarch, its game plan is generally to set up a DD Survivor, set up a Macro Cosmos or a Dimensional Fissure, and to, use that as free tribute fodder that will just keep coming down. And it's pretty good. It also counters a lot of other decks in the meta, because things start getting banished to grave as opposed to just going to grave. So, the Disc Commander shut off, Sangan shut off, a lot of different things are shut off, which is pretty good for the Macro Monarch player, but pretty bad for a Perfect Circle Monarch player. Now, Night Salem is not a typical inclusion in the Perfect Circle Monarch deck, but it does make some sense if you're going for more discard cards like Fiend Twin Blast. You get back flip monsters here, but Breaker will be met with a Pulling the Rug. So, you generally want to use Pulling to stop Stratos, but it does hit Breaker as well. There are a surprising amount of cards that Pulling does hit that you might not consider. So, very, very good card to open with here if you're Karina. Barcode setting 4 passing back, which means that they do not fear Heavy Storm. So, they probably have a Solemn or like even a Dark Bribe maybe in that backer there. But D-Draw into the Disc Commander is definitely unfortunate for Karina, that is. Very fortunate for Barcode. If they've got like a Call of the Haunted or something to bring back that Disc Commander, that will obviously be very good. But Karina could potentially be playing DD Crows as well. Generally, these Macro Monarch lists don't necessarily play DD Crows in the main, because if everything's going right, ideally, they should just be banishing everything from grave anyways. But you never know what people are going to bring forth for these sorts of events. Trap Dust Shoot, though, getting a peek at that full hand of 5 cards there. Pretty good rip from Barcode. Dust Shoot is limited to 1 copy, but it is around in this format. So, yeah, my night's been going pretty well. See Spare. Hope that your night has been going well as well. I was just putting the finishing touches on video. It's going to go out soon. I was also playing in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Retro Power League, which is basically a version of War League that like combines all the different retro forms that people play into one thing. And it's pretty fun. So I definitely encourage people to check that out. I did post a video on the channel a while back just mentioning it. I meant to post some videos just showing off like highlights of each week. But then life caught up to me and I haven't really had much time to do that. So yeah, I just saw the OBS sort of fluctuate on my end. Hopefully that didn't cause any adverse effects on your end. I've been having some, Wi-Fi difficulties tonight, unfortunately. I also had Wi-Fi difficulties, I think, last night too, because the video that I wanted to put up today, I actually wanted to put it up yesterday instead. But, the upload process took longer than expected, which I don't quite know why, because it was still a pretty standard size, but well, that's how it goes. Anyway, I didn't talk about Mask of Darkness, but that is a pretty cool inclusion in this deck. Getting back the pulling the rug, so not as good once your opponent knows about it, but still, it does stop them from just slamming down a Stratos, right? Which you obviously don't want them to do. So it's got to force them to do other things in a different way. But Master of Darkness is pretty decent if you've got like, Macro Cosmos to bring back and stuff like that. And just bring back your counter traps as well. So very, very cool inclusion from Corinna here. But that Ryza that they bring out is going to trade with a pulling the rug there. Honestly, not terrible because the Mask of Darkness wasn't really doing much on its own. You could argue that maybe the better play here would have been to, attack with both the Mask and the DD Warrior Lady. And then, tribute out the Ryza. But they did not do that there. Oh, I guess Barcode's playing Mask of Darkness as well. I didn't realize that. But, Mask of Darkness, it does have some applications in this sort of format. So it's a neat card to include, paired with Night Assailant, which we know that Barcode is playing here as well. So pretty cool altogether. Of course, the Dim Fizz plus the DD Survivor has the combo up there. So, Corinna has set that up in a pretty good way. But Barcode does have 4 back row that could potentially deal with the Dim Fizz. So we'll have to see if they can deal with it. We know that one of Corinna's back row is probably pulling the rug, unless they've really been like, holding it in hand to sort of just bluff the opponent out. But I do think it is very likely that that card is pulling the rug there. But Barcode thinking here, Mirror Force wouldn't be bad. You might need to Mirror Force here. It's awkward because, Phoenix Wind Blast also works. Yep, pitching another Phoenix Wind Blast to prevent the DD Warley from tagging the set. I mean, it could be Reaper, it could be Marshmallow. Okay, MST on the Fisher here. That is interesting. Could be, can't be another Night Assailant, I don't think. I think Night Assailant is limited in this format, I believe. Probably not Maneater Bug, I assume. I'm trying to think what else could it be. Yeah, I can't think of anything else right now. But Solemn's going to come down to protect the Dim Fizz, but a Solemn of Barcode's own will protect their MST. So that's going to be a bit brutal there. Going to do Fearmonger. Okay, that makes sense why you do that, because now the Disc Banner's coming back. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking like, oh, they don't want the Survivor to proc, but they just wanted the Fearmonger to proc. So that makes sense to me. There is an argument here for Corinna to actually have not attacked them Survivor after the DD Worley was spun back. But I figured they probably felt like with a Solemn up, Dim Fizz would probably go into resolve either way here. So they did get a bit punished for that, but they're still not in the worst spot imaginable. The issue here is that like they don't have a way to get their survivors still in rotation here. Of course, if nothing kills it, then it's pretty good, but like you're not guaranteed that here. So D Worley attacking into the set monster. It's a Gravekeeper Spy, bringing out some more bodies on board. And Corinna's got to decide, do I use the DD Worley there to potentially prevent them from having 2 bodies on board to tribute out for a Lad or a Democ? Or do I just leave the Warrior Lady here? Looks like they're going to choose to leave the Warrior Lady. This is a bit bad into Lad if Barcode does have it, especially because Lad dodges pulling the rug here. But we'll have to see if that actually does come to fruition. Premature Burial is going to be used on the Disc Commander. That's going to draw Barcode 2 cards deeper. So even if Corinna had banished, they'd still have 2 material for the Lad here. So that's a bit awkward for Corinna. Barcode's in a really, really good spot there, but they do have the Disc Commander in attack mode, so they have to have some way to tribute that off, or else they're dead next turn, unless they've got some way to protect from the Survivor just attacking in there, which they probably do. But the question is, what is that way? If it's a Ryza, you probably set the Ryza, although you might want to just bait out the Rug because you've got 2 other tributes here. But it looks like they're going to go for the Phoenix Wind Blast instead, spinning back that set, which we have a fairly good inkling is Rug. And now they can tribute over the Disc Commander, bring out a Ryza here, and spin back the Warrior Lady, and then attack over the Survivor here. So Corinna's top deck is stacked. We know it's a Warrior Lady and a Phoenix Wind Blast. So nothing that can really threaten Barcode here if they want to go all in, and they will indeed do that. So that's game 1 for Barcode there. As I mentioned, there were some potential places where people could have made different decisions. But, at this sort of high level of play, it is really, really tough to know what exactly the right choice is. And most people only play one Fearmonger, so not the most likely thing that Barcode has set there. But maybe you just play around that anyways. But with the Solemn set, maybe you just want to get aggressive there. I don't know. It's definitely a bit of a thinker there. You probably want to, well, with the Pulling the Rug set, maybe you're not as afraid of a Monarch coming down, so maybe you just don't attack over it. Maybe that would have been the thing. But then Barcode, well, if Barcode flipped it up and attacked in the Survivor, then they were taking a lot of damage there. So, yeah, it's just interesting food for thought on either side. Tough to know what the correct decision is either way without knowing the exact contents of the hands and field, right? We don't know what the last card Corinna had in hand was, and that could have potentially been something that allowed them to, make that play with more certainty. But who knows? We'll have to see exactly what they do in game 2, though. The issue with Macro Monarch, though, is that it often does suffer in game 2 as the opponent brings in outs to it. A lot more spell and trap removal, for instance, is really bad for Macro Monarch. Row of the Creed, really bad for Macro Monarch, especially the version of the deck that Corinna is playing. Maybe Corinna countersides against that a little bit. We'll have to see exactly what she does here. And they are going first, so I don't know. It'll be an interesting one. Of course, Corinna did not really get good setup there last game, but to be fair, neither did Barcode. So it was a bit of an interesting one. And when you lack setup, I think that the Dimensional Fisher deck is a bit worse than the Persical Monarch deck. But when both decks do have setup, I think the Dimensional Fisher deck is a little bit better because, it basically negates the opponent's setup, But Barcode's thinking here, so, maybe they've got a Heavy Storm that they don't necessarily want to slam down there. Maybe they've got some cards they don't want to necessarily commit to field in case they get banished. A lot of different options for what Barcode was thinking about. But either way, they're just going to pass back to Corinna here. And Corinna's just going to set one pass back. So it seems like they don't really have any monsters that they want to commit either. So what will Barcode do here? This might be one of those games where it's just sort of back and forth. It does cut off the D hero engine, so if they've got a D draw that's rotting in hand, they don't really want to use it right now, especially if Corinna is not really pushing. There's no real incentive to use up your stuff now before you actually have a way to deal with macro. And this is sort of like one of the things that a lot of people suffer with going against this dim fuse macro deck. You have to know when to actually, do your stuff and know when to not. And sometimes you just have to sort of play it slow, right? Spirit Reaper coming down, knowing that will bait out something here and not really feeling too bad about Spirit Reaper being banished. And that will indeed bait out the TT, which is a very, very good thing to hit off, especially because if DD Survivor ever comes down, that TT, it's perfectly fine for Corinna to use, but not necessarily as fine for Barcode because the Survivor will come back, but whatever else is on the field will not necessarily. Dutch Shoot's obviously going to be here very good for Corinna, able to cut off whatever Barcode's got going on in that hand there. And also just get a peek at what's going on. Like, are they slow rolling a bit? Do they have removal for some stuff that they're maybe not committing yet? Do they have monsters that they're not committing yet? Unclear. But it looks like they're going to... What are they going to do? They're thinking. 6 cards is a lot to see off a Dust Shoot. So there might be a fair amount of choices there in that hand. They're going to send back a Legendary Jiu-Jitsu Master and leave them with a D-Draw, Soul Exchange, Mally, Disc Commander, and Fearmonger. Not the hand that you want to have against a Dimensional Fisher here. But the Mally plus Soul X does make things a little bit awkward here for Corinna. Gold Sarcophagus is pretty good. You can get out that DD Survivor, just bring it to hand in a couple turns. So that's pretty nice. If you want immediate stuff, you can bring out Scout Plane. I'm not the biggest fan of Scout Plane. It does pair nicely with Gold Sark, but what's it really doing on field here? Not much. And yeah, just kind of weak. It also leaves you open to aggression on your opponent's end because they just keep poking over the Scout Plane. Then that can be a bit rough for you. It's also not something that you ever really want to draw, right? Survivor is okay to draw because it's an 1800 guy. So you're generally fine, either using it to beat down or potentially to stave off a little bit of damage. But Scout Plane is just very, very weak overall. But some decks do play it. They want to go all in on the banish stuff, and that is one way to do it. So it seems like Barcode's going to pop the D-Draw here because they're just like, well, this isn't getting any better. I'm not trying my ways to deal with Dim Fizz. They've got a bunch of back row. I'm probably not getting through that anyways, and so I'm just going to go for it now. And they are wisely not going to Soul Exchange over the Scout Plane. Not really a good thing to do there, but they are going to tribute the Scout Plane for a Mobius here, trying to pop 2 of the back row. Is that going to be met with a Pulling the Rug? Looks like it will not. So it's going to target 2 spell traps on the field. It's going to target the one... yes, it is activated. Yep, that's correct. Yeah. it does activate and then it's negated. So pulling will come down there. So yep, that is the correct ordering. I was thinking like Solemn Judgment, which you do have to use, before anything happens. But yeah, pulling does not work that way. So a Solemn Judgment will come down for Corinna herself, and that will stop the pulling from getting rid of the Mobius. I think that's probably fine. It does get you pretty low, but you know that your opponent doesn't really have much there, so it's probably fine to do that. It's just kind of awkward because, like, you're trading with one of those back row anyways, and, like, do you really care all too much about doing the other? I don't know. It's an open question, I think. Yeah, it's an open question, I think. Another Wind Blast in hand, pitching the Mally to spin back that Dim Fizz. Very interesting choice there. That means they probably have another Monarch in hand if they're doing that, because otherwise you'd probably want a Soul Exchange with the Mally to clear the Mobius that way. But this could also mean that they've got another D-Draw to pitch a Disc Commander. It looks like they do, so they're going to pitch that Disc Commander there, draw 2 more, and, see if they draw into something that gets them out of this situation. This also is good for getting rid of the Scalp Plane, right? Because if you Soul Exchange over the Scalp Plane, that's not coming back. Although, if you do that, then, you still have to deal with the Mobius here. So that's not necessarily the cleanest out, but they are going to choose to, Mobius or Soul Exchange over the Mobius. Oh, this is actually kind of neat because if they spin back the Scalp Plane is just really bad to draw here. So this does deal with the Mobius, which is probably the bigger threat. But Crush Card Virus stripping off the Scalp Plane, that is another use of Scalp Plane. It's not, in my opinion, reason enough to play a Scalp Plane, but like it is a reason to potentially play it. But yeah, there goes the Mobius in Barcode's hand. And since they don't have the Mally anymore, this will be a bit bad if they don't have another one. They do indeed do not have another one. But actually, hold up. They have a way to get into one. They can go pre-mat on the Stratos, search out a Mally, and then tribute set over to that. That is a potential out to this if the last card Corinna has is not a way to stop that. But they might choose to go pre-mat on Disc Commander. I would not recommend doing that. It looks like they're just going to pre-mat back a Mobius here. I don't know how I feel about this. I guess they're saying the Spy, but like, I feel like they could have just cleared the Mobius by searching out a, by going pre-mat for Stratos, searching out Mally, and then setting the Mally over the Stratos, or not over the Stratos, over the Mobius. You clear the Mobius there. You're not as susceptible to removal with the pre-mat here. I think it potentially would have been the better play. I think they might not have seen it at the time. But again, it is hard to know what the correct plays are. A lot of different lines that these decks can do. And Ryza is going to be a bit bad here. Spinning back that Mobius, which is going to be a dead draw. Well, actually, not quite a dead draw because the Spy will be out here. But, it's one card left, and it's going to be a bit awkward here. Whereas if the Mally had been searched out here, you're not normal summoned yet, and then you could tribute set over the Ryza there. So Barcode's probably kicking themselves over that a bit. But yeah, there comes a Torrential Tribute. Okay, I guess it's getting shuffled into the deck, yeah. So next card drawn will not be that. But yeah, now they're in a tough spot, and I think they could have potentially actually come back from this. I mean, it's tough under Crush Card, but like the top cards of Corinna's deck were not that good. So they could potentially come back from this. We don't know. Heavy Storm is going to be too little too late, I think, here. I mean, you might still fire it, but you might not as well, because Torrential Tribute here is going to be pretty good at stopping Corinna from getting more aggressive here, which you probably do want online. But I think Corinna is just going to attack in for 24 if they don't have a way to negate the Torrential Tribute. And if they do, they're just going to go for whatever they can and negate the Torrential Tribute if they want to. But yeah, Ryza is a clock. I mean, this is kind of what you want to do. But yeah, rough stuff. But it is, I mean, the Barcode can come back from this. There are ways to do it. It's just not the most likely thing in the world. Especially with 3 unknown back row that Corinna has set here. Rhoda is going to search out something. I don't know what you're searching out with Rhoda. Maybe another Fearmonger. Maybe Exiled Force. Okay, they've got a Survivor of their own. That is something that is okay to have. Summing out the Survivor and using Torrential now. I'm not sure if I would do that necessarily. I mean, it does play around a Ryza of Corinna's own, so it's not terrible. I don't hate that. And then you go Heavy Storm here, actually. Okay, I see the vision. I see the vision. But yeah, Solemn on the TT there. Honestly, you could Solemn the Survivor and just win the game off that. So that maybe was a misplay on Corinna's part, unless they've got a Survivor of their own. They do need to have that Survivor of their own, so there's just going to be lethal damage there. So we're going on to the game 3. So, yeah, I mean, I will say, I think these games are very, very good showings for both decks. I think that both decks have done some pretty cool plays. They've shown, what they can do when they get set up and what they can do when they get going. Not to say that play has been perfect on every avenue, and not to say that I'm a perfect commentator, right? There are things that I miss, lines that could be done differently. Like, I'm not pointing out the lines that I see because I'm trying to say that I'm better than these players or these players are bad. I'm just pointing out lines that I see. And let me know in the comments if you agree that those lines would be good, or maybe I'm wrong and those lines would actually be bad. Let me know. But what stands is that both these players have made it to the finals. They're both very, very good duelists. And, every play that they make has their own purpose to it, likely. So, yeah, Barcode going to set one, set another, pass back, and it's back to Corinna. And Corinna will have to deal with two back row. Unclear what those back row would be. Probably one's a Phoenix Wind Blast. Maybe another is a pulling. Maybe it's a Dust Tornado back there as well to deal with a Dim Fizz or something like that. But probably not Dust Tornado. Well, maybe they're holding Dust Tornado if they've got it. But either way, there's Sidra coming down now. So Sidra can beat over that set if they want to. Breaker coming down as well. It tells me that maybe one of those backers is not Dust, because otherwise you'd have free range, just pop everything there. They're going to pop a Dim Fizz, which is pretty good. Sidra is going to attack over a Spy, but Spy will get out another Gravekeeper from deck here. That's going to hit another Spy. So that tells you that the last card is probably not Crush Card Virus, unless Corinna is not playing a guard in the deck, but they probably wouldn't set a Crush Card Virus into 2 unknown back row in game 3 of this match if they did not have a tribute for it. So I think this is probably fine. They do need to do something about this board, though. They're going to Brain Con probably the Sidra. Yep, there it goes. And the Sidra will get taken over. And then they're just going to beat over the Breaker there with the Sidra. Probably tribute it in main 2, I assume. And they are indeed going to do that. Tributing out a Ryza, trying to spin back one of the back row here. And it's going to target that one, but pulling the rug will get flipped. Trade with that Ryza. But Critton still cleared Barcode's board. If Barcode does not have another Sidra in hand, they're going to be hard-pressed to deal with that Spy. And it looks like they do indeed not have that. They're just going to set one pass back, and Corinna draws. So Corinna's getting a bit of time to potentially assemble things for their deck. And Breaker's going to come down here, potentially pop one of those back rows, potentially meet a pulling. We don't know. We'll have to find out. And that will be fine by Barcode. Okay, so no pulling back there. I feel like you would use pulling because Breaker's going to trade with one in the back row either way here. Targeting the back row that was not used when Ryza came down. I think that makes a lot of sense, because otherwise you might just chain the back row if it was chainable. So they are going to attack him with the Breaker, leaving the Spy in defense. I think that is smart, because you want this more as a wall, just to have a tribute material on board for later, just in case you really need it. Than you really do just to get more damage in. Damage is important in these formats, but there are other things that are slightly more important sometimes. Heavy activating here, and that's going to be a bit of a tricky one for Corinna. They got to think, do I negate this potentially? Do I chain to it? What do I do? And it looks like Barcode's going to chain to it, going for a Phoenix Wind Blast, trying to spin back that Spy. If you're Corinna, you're probably wondering about that. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world to have the Spy on top, because it's something that gets you another thing later. But this could be the start of something kind of nasty here if you lose it. It looks like they are need to go into Solemn that. So they had the Solemn set, but they didn't want to use it on the Heavy. They'd much rather Solemn the Wing Blast there. This does allow them to keep drawing deeper into their deck, but their deck does need a little bit more cards together to actually pair into something good than Barcode's deck does, especially with a Disc Commander in rotation. Pre-mat on the disc there, so that is going to draw Barcode 2 more cards. They might have another Monarch in hand as the last card. Or they could draw into one now. Stratos instead coming down to search out a hero from deck, and this is where things really spiral. The Perfect Circle Monarch deck gets a lot of advantage out of the hero engine. You can search out Fearmonger here. That's probably going to be the search. But you could also search out something like Dasher for future aggressive plays here. If you want to, you could search out Mally just to get that in rotation. You've got a D-draw potentially in hand. A lot of different stuff that Barker could search here. And what they do search will tell us a bit about the content of their hand. They're going to search out the Mally. So I assume this means that they've got a discard card, either a D-draw or a Phoenix Wind Blast. And I assume since they're going to battle phase here, that's going to be a Phoenix Wind Blast here. So, yeah, that's going to be a bit punishing for Corinna here. Not punishing, but still. Oh, interesting. No set there. So that tells me that maybe they already had the Fearmonger in hand. So they might have drawn it off the Disc Commander, for instance. So Yeah, because or they sided out Fearmonger. You could do that as well because you know your opponent's on a banished deck and Fearmonger is going to get less value against that style of deck. But Exiled Force coming down here, it can beat over the Disc Commander and then pop the Stratos. You probably do want to do this, even though you know doing this gets Disc Commander back in Grave. But Fearmonger, you have to destroy by battle to actually bring something back, and Call Mahan to one of. So what are the odds they have that? So I think this is fine to do. It deprives them of Monarch tributes on board. So I think that makes a lot of sense. But Corinna thinking here. They're thinking about something. Maybe they've got a Phoenix Bloom Blast in hand that they're debating setting as a bluff. Or just as something that will be live on the next turn. Oh, they're sarking. Okay, I see. So they're sarking here. Trying to debate about what to get here, probably. Scout Plane is not really that good because it comes back and then gets immediately beaten over. So the question is, what do you sark here? Sark, a very interesting card in these formats. There are some cards that you can combo immediately with Sark, like the Scout Plane, for instance. But there are a fair amount of other cards that you don't really care about sarking or that, you know, are a bit more situational with Sark. And oftentimes when you activate Gold Sark, you have to plan out turns in advance to sort of figure out, okay, what is going to be the best card for me here when that turn comes around? You know, what do I want to search out? My opponent will know it's coming, so they can play around it a bit. So what will I do? And that is a very, very open question here. And we'll have to see what Corinna picks here. They're going to pick a Spirit Reaper, all-around good option. If you're in an aggressive seat in a couple turns, you can use it to get in for hand rips. If you're in a defensive seat, you can just set it and, you know, have your opponent have to deal with it, right? So I think that's a great pick off Sark there. And I think that is sort of like what you want to do off the Sark. And it makes sense why you'd go for that. Sark is just sort of getting worse and worse in hand over time. But obviously the Brain Con on the Spy is going to be a bit scary here. Going for 1,200 in and then probably tribute set for Mally. So it seems like that was what the Brain Con, why the Mally was searched, because you wanted to have a card to tribute over for Brain Con. So that makes some sense there. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But Rhoda's going to come down here. Rhoda could bring out a DD Warrior Lady if you want to really cut off the Mallies. It could just bring out like the Survivor, but it looks like they are going to go for the Warrior Lady here. Banish the Mally most likely, and that is indeed the Mally. So do you banish it or not? I feel like I would if I was Corinna here, because pre-mat's gone. You're not really worried about that. What you are really worried about is them going for like a Ryza, spinning back your Warrior Lady and getting in for lethal damage here. So I would do it. It looks like Corinna is doing it as well, and I think that makes a lot of sense. This deprives them of a monster to bring out for a Monarch, right? And also, even if they do have a Monarch, you know, you'd have to tribute that out and spin something back, which you can't really do as easily with Monarchs. But Survivor going to come down here and attack in for 18. Reaper does come to hand, so that is a nice option to have here to protect yourself. But it is going to be a bit awkward if Barcode had a Monarch in hand. So what do they have? You know, do they have that Monarch that they can try and spin back the Reaper and get him for game? Or do they have a Warrior Lady to try and beat over the set monster? MST on the back row is going to hit a TT there, and then the Survivor is going to attack into the Spear Reaper. So if that gets targeted, then things are going to be bad for Corinna. BrainCon's gone, though, and BrainCon is limited in this format, so you don't have to worry about that. But Corinna can't be too happy about that TT being gone there. But set's going to come down for Corinna. Soul Exchange on the Reaper. That will pop the Reaper. You can't attack this turn. But, you know, it does clear the Reaper, and that's why they attacked into it there. So Barcode also setting one more, and then passing back to Corinna. Corinna setting one. Oh my goodness, my Wi-Fi is going crazy, but we missed the end of the game there. It looks like Barcode was able to win off that Survivor. Very, very GG's indeed. Both players played these very well. And yeah, this was very intense. Very, very cool stuff. And I think both players have a very cool build. Corinna using the Mask of Darkness and the Scout Planes, which aren't standard on every list. And, you know, Barcode playing some interesting stuff as well, like the Night Assailant, for instance. So, very, very cool to see that. And, yeah, hopefully my Wi-Fi issues resolved by the time I do my next stream. But, yeah, I'm going to call it here probably. Yeah, MST and Dimfizz showing off one of the big flaws with this deck. Unfortunately, like if you draw one part of it instead of the other, then it can definitely be a bit bad. So, but yeah, I hope you enjoy. As always, it's been a while since I've actually been able to stream a finals of a Yu-Gi-Oh! From Zero tournament here. It's been a bit, I think since Demise. I think that was the last one. So I'm glad I could do it this time. I hope everyone enjoyed as always. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Maybe no one's seeing this because my Wi-Fi is acting up. Oh my goodness. So apologies for that. Hopefully that it still caught what I said there. And if not, then, there's lots of time, but hopefully y'all hear it and enjoy it. But yeah, sorry for the technical difficulties again. I hope you enjoyed as always, and join the YJ from Zero Discord server linked in the description down below if you want to play in these formats for yourself and in these tournaments for yourself. But that's going to do it as always. Until next time, I've been Ben from YJ from Zero, and I'm signing off. Peace.